welcome Cliff Bunville.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I just got one question. Who's excited to be here? Come on, I need some energy. Who's excited to be at this conference? Come on, yeah, I need some energy, because when you give me energy, I can give energy back to you. So who's excited to be here? Awesome. So I'm super excited. I'm super pumped up. Like, again, Shelby, thank you for the invitation. Like, I'm so grateful. I'm so humbled by the opportunity to be able to come and to speak to you guys. And so, again, like she said, my name is Cliff Bunville. And let's just address the elephant in the room, because I know some people are probably thinking it. Bunville, yes, that is my real last name. The reason why I say that is because, see, there was a time when I was the general manager at McDonald's here in Wichita, and it was shortly after I became the general manager that they didn't have my company email working properly. So I had to use my personal email to be in contact with my supervisor. And so my company email at the time was bunville07@hotmail.com. Does anybody remember Hotmail? MSN Messenger? Yeah, I had some conversation. But anyways, so my supervisor, one day he comes into the restaurant and he's looking through some papers, and all of a sudden he stops and he goes, "Cliff." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Bunville, that's your real last name?" And I looked at him and I go, "Yes, Bunville is my real last name." And he goes, "Oh, I saw your email address and I thought you were trying to be funny. Get it, Bunville?" And I look and he's pointing to a rack of Big Mac buns. And I just looked at him and I said, "No, Bunville is my real last name." But anyways, moving on. Like I said, Cliff Bunville, I am a continuous improvement specialist at one of the #1 pharmaceutical companies in the world. I am also a motivational and inspirational speaker. And so today, like this whole conference, you guys are going to gain a lot of skill. You guys are going to learn some good stuff, and you guys are going to learn things that you're able to take back with you whatever company you work for. And so, but there's one thing that I want to tell you guys, because it doesn't matter how much skill you have, there are certain things that you may come up against in life that your skill is not going to be able to help you. There are certain things that you're going to come against life where you need more than just great skill, but you need a great will. And that's why I'm here today, because I want to hopefully be able to ignite something in you. I want to be able to ignite your will, because when you come up against those challenges, how are you going to get through it? And so that's why I'm here today. So let's go to the next slide. So let's just start off with this. Life is hard and full of challenges. Can anybody agree? Life is hard and full of challenges. Is there anybody that's dealing with different challenges? Is there anybody that's dealing with, high turnover, low retention? Life is hard and full of challenges. Is there anybody that's dealing with, employee satisfaction, patient satisfaction, dealing with issues in the workplace, dealing with issues at home? Is there anybody that has different challenges that they're going through? Life is hard, full of challenges. Everybody in here is dealing with some sort of challenge. And that's the thing that connects us all, because we're all unique, but one thing that's common is that we all have challenges. And so I recall there's a challenge that I had back at the end of 2008. And see, in 2008, me and my wife, we tried to start our own business, and we tried to open up a brick and mortar business, and the business didn't go well. It wasn't successful. And see, during that time, we ended up having to move in to my mother-in-law's basement. And so 2018, here I am living in my mother-in-law's basement with my wife and my 2 children. Like, during this time, I'm feeling less than a man because I can't provide for my family. Like, I was raised, like the way I was raised, I was told as a man, you got to protect your family. As a man, you are the provider. Like, you make sure everything is good. And here I am in my mother-in-law's basement. Bank account just negative. My cell phone's turned off. My credit score was like 400 something. I don't even remember. I was in a bad place. But my life then looks nothing like my life now. Because since then, there are different changes that happened. And before I explain the different things that took place that allowed me to get from there to here, I want to share with you guys a story. Now, this story involves a guy by the name of David. Now, some of you may have heard this story before. If you've heard it, this is the CB version. So there's this guy by the name of David, and he's a shepherd boy. And David lives in a place called Israel. And see, David, he's living in this place, and the Israelites are at war with this group called the Philistines. And see, the Philistines, they have this champion, this giant by the name of Goliath. And this Goliath is this major challenge for them. And so the Israelite army, they're standing there and they're stuck in fear because of this challenge that's standing in their way. And they're frozen. They don't want to do anything. Goliath is trash talking them, but they're so afraid that they're stuck and they can't move from where they're at. I don't know if you've ever been dealing with a challenge to where you felt stuck, like you couldn't move, like you can't get past it. I don't know if you've ever dealt with anything where you were afraid to where you didn't know what to do. And so then David's dad basically tells him, hey, here's some lunches. Your brothers are out there on the battlefield. Why don't you go take these lunches to them? And so David, he goes, takes the lunches. And I don't care what anyone says. I'm pretty sure David was the first Uber Eats driver. Grubhub, one of the two. I don't know. But he takes the lunches to his brothers. And as he takes these lunches, he hears this giant just trash talking him. He hears this giant just talking all kind of trash. And he's sitting there and he says, do you guys hear that? And everyone's just kind of like, yeah, we're used to it. Like we're used to hearing him. But David's like, the things that he's saying, that's not right. Somebody should do something about it. And so David decided that he was going to do something about it. And so David said, hey, I'll fight him. If everybody else is afraid, I'll fight him. And so David goes and he gets 3 stones. And long story short, he goes and fights Goliath. He takes on the challenge and he's able to prevail. And so the crazy thing about that story is I got to thinking, okay, I said, the Israelites, they had a challenge. David also had a challenge. Both of them had challenges, and both of them actually had the same challenge. But the Israelites, the challenge caused them to be stuck in fear, but David, he was able to respond in a different way. He was able to respond with boldness and with courage. And so that's the thing about it. We all have different challenges, but the thing that separates people is how you respond to the challenge. How are you going to respond to the challenges that you face? And so going back to when I was in my mother-in-law's basement, like I had to respond to that challenge. And so one of the first things that I had to do, I had to believe. I had to believe that where I was at that point was not where I was going to stay. I had to believe that there was greater for my life. That's what David did. David believed. He believed that he could take on this challenge. Where everybody else was afraid, David said, no, I know I can do this. And that's what you have to have. You have to have a belief that no matter your circumstance, no matter your situation, you have to believe that it can get better. No matter the challenges you face, you have to believe that you can overcome it. What's your belief? Because if you don't believe that you can conquer the challenge, you lost already. I heard it once said, he who thinks he can't and he who thinks he can, both are usually right. It's your thinking. And so that's the first step, is that belief. You have to believe that you can overcome the challenge. I know you might be going through some tough times. You have to believe that that marriage can get better. You have to believe that those issues at work can get better. You have to believe that you can find the right employees. You have to believe that you can find the right people. I know it's hard. It's tough. But life has always been tough. But you have to believe. And then number two, you have to make a decision. After you just make up in your mind that there is better for you, then you have to decide that you're going to go get it. Because it's one thing to believe, but if you believe and just sit on your hands, nothing's going to happen. I'm sorry, but just believing and not doing any action, there's no magic in that. So I'm sorry if you thought that just believing was enough, because it's not. Because after you believe, then you have to decide. And that decision will lead you to some actions. And so David believed he could win, but then he didn't just stop there. He decided. And so that decision caused him to go get the rocks. He took steps. And so my decision at that point in my life, I decided, no, I'm not staying here. And so I started to take steps to get out of that situation. And when you begin to take steps, the change doesn't happen automatically. Sometimes it can happen in a day. Sometimes it might take a week. Sometimes it might take a year. But when you decide, that's the start. And as time goes on, then you will begin to see how that decision will play out. Let's go to the next slide. And so today, I want you guys, I remember when I was a kid in school, and anytime a friend of mine wanted me to do something, he'd be like, hey, why don't you go over there and, why don't you go talk to that girl? And I'm like, man, why don't you go talk to the girl? But if he really wanted to get me, he'd be like, I dare you to go talk to her. And I'm like, uh-oh, he dared me. They like, oh, he dared you. But then if he really wanted to take to the next level, he then would say, I double dog dare you. And when they double dog dare you, that's, nope, I got to do it. So I double dog dare you guys to begin to respond to the challenges of life with an extreme work ethic. I double dog dare you to begin to change your response. And so, work ethic, a collection of principles, when applied collectively, produce positive results. And so there's many different principles when it comes to work ethic. You can Google and you can find many different words as it relates to work ethic. And this morning, I'm only going to talk about 3 of them, but there's many of them out there. And then when we look at the word extreme, exceeding the ordinary, usual, or expected. And so it's one thing to have a good work ethic, but it's another thing to have an extreme work ethic. And so there's a lot of people that have a good work ethic, but still aren't getting the results that they want. And the reason being is some of our challenges are extreme. Like some of our challenges we've been dealing with for years. And so it's not just going to take an average work ethic to get through it, but it's going to take something beyond that. And that's where that extreme work ethic comes in. Because, again, a lot of people can put forth the work, but that's average. That's average. And there was a long time in my life where I was okay with being average. But then I realized that there are certain things that wasn't happening in my life because I was staying on the average playing field. And if I realized that if I wanted to go to that next level, I have to step it up. I have to go beyond. I have to exceed the ordinary and the usual, to the point where certain people will look at you crazy. Certain friends will say, oh, you do too much. But it's like, no, I have goals. I have vision. I have things that I'm working towards. And so it may seem strange to you because you decide to live off average, but it's not strange to me because I'm excited because I have goals. And so I have to put forth an extreme work ethic to deal with these extreme challenges. And so the first thing that I want to talk about, the first component of work ethic is persistence. Persistence. To go on stubbornly in spite of opposition. You have to be persistent. I believe it was Rocky Balboa who once said, it's not how hard you hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And so the reason why I like to start with persistence is because persistence is all about mental toughness. Because like I said, you guys are going to learn a lot of different skills. You guys are going to learn a lot of different concepts, a lot of different things that you can take back. But at some point, with all those great skills, at some point, life is going to try you. Life is going to test you. Life is going to say, okay, that's great, you have all these skills, but what happens when you have to deal with some issues in your home? What happens when you have some family issues? What happens when you have a death in the family? What happens when you go to the doctor and you have a certain illness? Like, what happens? How do you keep going? And that's where this persistence comes in. Persistence is key, because it's one thing to apply the principles one day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, but most people, time destroys them, and it's hard to keep going. It's easy to do it a couple times, but can you continue to do it day after day after day after day? That's where the separation occurs. Just like the old children's book. We all know it. The story, the tortoise and the hare. The hare is super fast, but he stopped. He didn't persist. But the tortoise, he just kept going. He just kept going. He just kept going. And because he kept going, that consistency, eventually he was able to win. And that's what I'm telling you to do. Just keep going. Just keep going. It doesn't matter how fast you are. It doesn't matter how slow you're going. Just keep going. Just don't stop. Just continue with persistence. Because after a while, you will conquer that challenge. After a while, you will conquer that Goliath. After a while, you will conquer that thing that you're struggling with. And so we all have struggles. And it's extremely hard to be persistent. And I know some of you might be thinking, man, you don't know certain things that I'm going through right now. It's hard to be persistent. It's hard to keep going. And trust me, I get it, because every day I have to be able to persist. Like, I have my beautiful wife here with me, and we've been married for 8, almost 9 years. We have 2 children. My son is 12. My daughter is 7. And my daughter, she has what's called 9P minus syndrome, an extremely rare condition. I believe it's like 1 out of 50,000 kids get it. And so first thing is, how did she get this? And the question was, am I a carrier? Is my wife a carrier? And we both went and tested, and neither one of us. So it just so happened to, just by chance. And so I still remember to this day when she was born, like I was in the delivery room, and I'm watching, and I'm excited, and I'm just like, yeah, my baby girl's about to be here. And I still remember, and in my head, I go back to, TV shows I watch and movies, and, you see the scene when, the baby is born, and the doctor delivers the baby, and all of a sudden, the dad gets to go and cut the umbilical cord, and they wash the baby off. They take the baby to the mother. The mom is smiling, looking down at it. The father's right above, and they're smiling and looking, and just joy. Well, that wasn't my experience. Because the moment my daughter came into this world, the doctors rushed her out of the room immediately. And I was standing there, not knowing what was going on. Like, understand, my expectation was not that. My expectation was just like what I saw. I'm going to cut the umbilical cord. They're going to clean her off. We're going to hold her, look at her, smile. But that did not happen. And so we're trying to figure out what's going on. And she had some complication. And turns out she had to go straight to the NICU. And we could not hold her for like the first 3 days. Imagine that. You've been waiting your whole life for this, and you've been waiting and you've been praying, and the day comes and you can't even hold your baby girl. You can't even touch her. And so we're having to go into the NICU and see her, and she's connected to all these different wires. And that was a hard time. And so finally, after a few days, we're able to hold her. We're able to feed her. And so then when it comes time for us to leave the hospital, they're like, okay, now we just have to do the hearing test. And so we get ready to do the hearing test. They come in, they hook everything up, they do the test. But then they kind of looked at us and said, something's not right. We're going to have to try it again. So they try it again. I'm like, okay, you guys are the doctors and nurses. I don't know what to do. So they try it again. And their response was, she may have some hearing issues. So you guys are going to have to go see a specialist. And so we go see a specialist and we find out that she has hearing loss. Okay, she's got hearing loss. What does that mean? Well, she may have to have a hearing aid. Okay, I've never experienced that, but we're going to do what we got to do. And as time went on, we went to other appointments. We went to an appointment and they said that she has slow growth, small muscle tone. She's not developing the way that she should. And I'm like, again, all this is new to me. And then we go somewhere else and they say she has a heart murmur, a hole in her heart. And then we go somebody else and they say she has what's called flat head syndrome. And then later we find out that she has glaucoma in her eye. I mean, it's just one thing after another. Life, when you talk about life hitting, life is at this point just knocking us down. And we don't know what to do. And so we continue to go and we eventually find out that she has 9p minus syndrome, which is a chromosome deletion, which is she's missing part of her 9th chromosome. And so what that means is about 40-something genes that she does not have. And with that causes so many different things. Like she has constipation issues. I'm talking not just, sometimes she goes a day without, any bowel movement. Sometimes she goes a week. Like it's an extremely tough situation. Like she can't walk. She can't stand on her own. She has a wheelchair. She can't talk. She's 7 years old. And I've yet to hear her call me daddy. 7 years old. That is a tough situation to be in. You want to talk about being persistent. Like, imagine having to carry your 7-year-old out to the car. And she's tall, like she takes after me, so she's extremely long. So here I am carrying this 7-year-old that's about half my body, and I'm looking crazy, and people are probably thinking, man, what in the world? But we have to do what we have to do. She's in PT and she's getting stronger, but yet we still have these challenges. And when you talk about trying to go out, you talk about trying to go to family dinners, that's almost impossible. So we don't get to experience certain things that some of our friends do. When people are like, hey, let's all go out to eat as a family, like we have to think twice about it because sometimes if she's in certain environments that's not to her liking, she doesn't behave properly. She screams, she makes all types of noise. At one point in life, she would cause herself harm, scratch herself till she would bleed, scratch her face up. And then we have to explain to people that, no, we're not abusive parents. This is just what she does. Like sometimes we used to have to put socks on her hands because if she got upset, she would attack her own body. Hard. You know how many days I've wanted to quit? You know how many days I've wanted to throw in the towel and say, this is too much? Like, I know people that have left their I know guys that have left their families because their child came out a little bit different and they couldn't handle it. Like, I know people that have walked away from their families. I know somebody that took his own life because he couldn't handle it. There's many days I want to quit. Just this past week, I wanted to quit. But I did not quit. And why didn't I quit? Because I have a why. What's your why? You have to have a reason for why you do what you do. You have to have a reason to keep moving forward, because when we talk about persistence, when life hits, when we start getting all those reports from the doctors, the different specialists, the only reason why I didn't quit was, one, my belief in my faith. But then number two, my family. I love my family too much to quit. I love my wife too much to quit. They're my anchor. And my daughter herself, like, there are times where I'm struggling, where I'm upset, when I've had a bad day, and I'll come home and I'll look at her and she just has this goofy smile. And she has no idea what's going on in the world. She has no stress, none of that. She's just sitting there laughing and smiling and bobbing her head. And when I look at her, I'm like, I can't stay mad. Like, whatever I was dealing with, it don't even matter at that point. It's amazing how she can lift my spirits in that way. My why. And so when you guys are facing certain challenges, and when you guys come up against those different challenges that are just tough, and you want to quit and you want to throw in the towel, you have to ask yourself, why did you start in the first place? Like, why are you at the job at the first place? Like, why are you doing the work that you do? And it can't just be about money. It can't just be about yourself, because a lot of times when it's just about you, it's easy to quit on yourself. It has to be about something bigger than you. It has to be about something that when you think about that thing, that keeps you going. And the days that I want to quit, the days that I want to throw in the towel, I think about my wife. And I think about all the things, all the sacrifice she has done for our family. I think about all the days where she chose to put her career on hold to stay home with our daughter because nobody else knew how to deal with her. Nobody else knew how to be able to stay with her and to watch her, because she did so many different things that were just out of the ordinary. So my wife put her life on hold to help raise our daughter. I think about that. I think about my daughter who knows how to lift me up and lift up my spirit. And I think about how this world doesn't know how to treat her. I think about how hard it will be in life for her. All the things that she can't do, the things that I may take for granted, I think that she doesn't even have a choice at this point to simply get up and walk somewhere when I'm ready to. There are times where she's sitting down and I can tell she wants to get up. She wants to move. She wants to go from this side of the room to that side of the room, but she can't. I think about those things. That's what keeps me going. What's your why? Let's go to the next slide. And so now, after we talked about persistence, let's talk about productivity for a second. So productivity is the measure of the amount of output in a given length of time. And so basically we could have, say, employee A and employee B. Both are doing the exact same job. Both are doing it for the exact same length of time. But employee B ends up producing more than employee A. Now you may ask, how does that happen? Well, this is where productivity comes in. Because employee A must have got sidetracked somewhere. Employee A must have got distracted by a fellow colleague that walked by that they wanted to, talk about their weekend. Employee A might have said, well, let me take a little time to check social media. Like, employee A might have got off track, but employee B stayed focused. And so productivity is one of those things in most organizations, most companies, like if they can fix some productivity issues, like that bottom line shoots up. Because one or two things happen when you increase your productivity. A, you're able to produce more, or B, you're able to finish one thing sooner than expected, so then you're able to move on to the next. And you're able to get in advance, you're able to get a jump start to the next thing. And when you talk about productivity in the workplace, man, that's huge. Because so many people take it for granted the opportunity they have at the job that they're working. And when you talk about productivity, the truth of the matter is productivity is all about time. It's all about valuing time properly. And most people don't value time properly. Every day we have 24 hours. 24 hours. That's it. Like last time I checked, I get 24 hours. I'm pretty sure you all get 24 hours. I don't think there's anybody that gets 25, 26. I mean, if you get more than 24, let me know. I'm trying to get on your level. 1,440 minutes. 86,400 seconds. That's it. And so most people, when you ask them, what do you value? What things do you value? They'll mention family. They'll mention certain things, their job. They'll mention certain things, but a lot of times people don't mention time. But time is the one thing that you can never get back. Like time is the one thing that when it's gone, it's gone. You don't have as much time as you think you do. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but most people, they're under the assumption that I can just do it tomorrow. I don't feel like doing it right now, so I'll do it next week. I got time, that's okay. But understand, time waits for nobody. You don't have as much time as you think you do. Like I remember when I was working in Wichita, and I had a good friend of mine. Her name was Lachey, and we worked together for years. And me, her, and another friend of ours, Tyrell, like we would hang out all the time outside of work. We would go do a lot of fun things. Like she had two sons, two young men that she was raising. And things were great. And I ended up, getting promoted, and then eventually I ended up moving. And I left Wichita. And I moved with me and my family. And one day, I get a phone call from Tyrell. And he goes, "Man, you're not going to believe this." And I'm like, "Just tell me." And I can tell something's wrong. Like he's very frantic. Like his voice, he just sound weird. And it was just like, "Man, what's going on?" And he goes, "Lachey's gone." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. That can't be." He goes, "No, she's gone." What are you trying to tell me? He goes, "Lachey has passed away." And so I'm like, what happened? And he goes, "She was out, she went to a party. She was drinking and just having a good time, and she passed out. And after she passed out, she never woke up." She did not know that night she wasn't going to leave that party. She did not know that before she left to go to that party, that was going to be the last time that she saw her children. She did not know that. She didn't know. None of us know how much time we have. That's why it's so important to value time properly, because you never know when's going to be the last time you can see that loved one. When is going to be the last time that you're able to do what you do? No one knows. And so we have to start valuing time properly. There's another story. Like at the place I work at now, like there was a point in time where I got to this position where I'm working on all these different documents, and I'm working on these different things. And so I asked for some help. And this lady by the name of Renee, she was extremely good at documentation. And so she offered to help. And so she helped me with all these different documents. And I told her that, I appreciate everything you've done. You're such a great help. And I told her that there was an opportunity for me. There was a new job that I was trying to attain. There was a new role at the company. And I said, if I get this role, I'll be doing more documentation stuff on a regular basis. And so her response was, great. If you get that role, let me know. And I'm happy to show you the ropes. I'm happy to teach you and show you everything that I know. I'm like, yes, I'll let you know. Thank you. Thank you so much. About 2 weeks later, while I'm at home, I get a text from a fellow coworker that said Renee passed away. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And they say, yeah, she passed away, COVID complications. And so that hurt because I did ended up getting that role. And I still, in my laptop, on my team's messages, I still have the message from her that said, if you get that role, let me know. I'll be happy to walk you through. I got the role, but she's not here to help walk me through. She wasn't there. And at that point in time, she had no idea that was going to happen. You don't have as much time as you think you do. And so what we have to do when we talk about valuing time, we have to be focused. We have to focus in the moment. We have to be focused on the task at hand, because where your focus goes, energy flows. And so when we talk about valuing time, whatever you're doing, be in the moment. Be present. Like whatever you're working on, be present, be focused, be 100% locked in. Because when you're focused completely, you're going to knock out some things. But when you are trying to multitask, and you're trying to work on this and work on that and talk to this person and check this email and check this social media and do this and do that. And then you wonder when you get to the end of the day and say, man, I got nothing done. Because you weren't focused, and now you have wasted an entire day. And then we say, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. But what if tomorrow never comes? You have to be focused, locked in to complete your task. Where focus goes, energy flows. And one thing I found out, when you're focused, you'll be amazed at how much more you get done. Like seriously, when we talk about productivity, like you're talking about increasing your productivity, focus is such a powerful tool because it helps you to increase your efficiency. It helps you to increase your level of awareness of what you got going on. And then it's almost like a chain reaction, like you begin to build momentum. But then when you start to take breaks and when you begin to go do this and go do that and try to do this, all those breaks break up your momentum. And then it's that much harder to keep going. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do something around the house, tried to be productive, and you sat down for a second to, just watch a little bit of that show. And you say, I'm just going to stay here till the commercial. And then the commercial passes, and I'm just going to stay here till it's over. And then, they got another episode after that, and now that 5 minutes turned to 2 hours. It's hard to get back on track when you lose that focus. It's hard. And so now, when we talk about productivity, now we want to go to the next stage, because once you begin to increase your productivity, that's great. But this last component I want to talk about is huge. Ownership. Ownership. The state or the fact of being accountable or to blame for something. Another word you can use is responsibility. You have to learn to take ownership. Take ownership of what you're doing. Take ownership of your job, of your role. Take ownership of your life. I'm sorry, I got some bad news and I got some good news. The bad news is it's your fault. That's the bad news. I'm sorry. If you're involved, it's your fault. But the good news is it's your fault. So what that means is, if it's your fault, if it's your issue, then that means you're the solution. And you're the one that's able to make the change. You're the one that's able to affect that in a positive way. Because a lot of times we like to blame other people. A lot of times when things don't go the way that we thought they were going to go, we're going to point the finger and say it didn't go right because of this person or because of that person. I didn't have the tools I needed. This person didn't help me. We like to blame other people. But the moment my life changed is when I said, I'm not blaming nobody. I'm not blaming nobody for my failures, but then I'm also blaming nobody for my successes. I'm taking it all on me. I'm taking 100% ownership. I'm taking 100% accountability and responsibility for the things that I'm doing. Because when you take 100% ownership, you are able to decide your destiny. But when you don't take ownership, when you blame other people, then you put your life in somebody else's hand. You give somebody power over your life. And many of us are stuck in the situations that we are because we've given power to other people over our lives. And we wonder why we've been in this rut year after year. It's because we're not holding the power. We're not holding the keys to our life because we didn't give ownership to somebody else, to our boss, to our spouse, to our coworker, to our friends. And if everybody doesn't do everything right, then we're not going to be able to move. But you have to get to a point where you say, it's all on me. And so one of the reasons why it's hard for people to take ownership is because a lot of people, I found out, have a negative fixed mindset. Negative fixed mindset. And so there's a stat that I read that talked about how the average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day. And of those 60,000 thoughts a day, 95% of those thoughts are repeated each day. And of those repeated thoughts, 80% are negative. That's a problem. That's a problem. Most people can't take ownership because they got so much negative thinking. So negative, and it's always everybody else's fault. But what we got to do is we have to start thinking positive. And so I get it. That's easier said than done. I get it. It's easier to say, okay, just think positive, because some of you have dealt with some major issues in life. But let's just bring it home. Some of you right now are dealing with some major issues. And right now, the fact that you're here is a miracle. Like some of you got some stuff at home that's going on that you said, man, I hope I gain something from this conference that's just going to encourage me, that's just going to motivate me and inspire me, because some of the things I'm dealing with right now, it's hard to think positive when my situation doesn't seem positive. And trust me, I get it. Look, I was raised by a single mom with 4 brothers. Like I didn't meet my real father till I was about 3rd grade. And by the time I got to 5th grade, my mom decided to allow me to go live with my father. Now, at this point in time, it was like, she said, it's time for you to learn how to be a man. It's time for you to learn what it takes to be a man, because I can't teach you that. So that was her reasoning. But I'll be 100% honest. Like, at that time of my life, I was causing a lot of issues for my mom. Like, if I can be honest, I'm running away from home. I'm getting in fights at school, like, police bringing me home. So I was being extremely hard on my mom. And like I said, I had 3 other brothers, so she's trying to raise 4 boys. And we all have different dads. It was rough. And so she allows me to go live with my dad so he can help me and teach me how to be a man. But the other part of it was, it's a way for her to get rid of this problem. And she might not say that, but that's how I felt. And so I live with my dad. He raises me from 5th grade all through middle school, high school. And then I get to my senior year. And halfway through my senior year, my dad sends me to go back to live with my mom. I guess he couldn't deal with the problem either. We were we had some issues. We were going back and forth and things weren't going well. So he said, you know what? Why don't you go back with your mom? And so I went back with my mom. Again, this is halfway through my senior year. And at this point in my life, I was so angry because I felt like I'm just this big problem that nobody wanted to deal with. And so I said, okay, if I'm this big problem, then let me just do whatever I want to do. And so at this point, this was just a terrible point in my life because my mom, she tried to help, but I was just so angry. I would yell at her and fuss at her and cuss at her all the time, and nobody could control me. And when I turned 18, I was out to do my own thing. And I started getting in a whole lot of trouble. But eventually, something happened. Eventually, there was something that changed. And that thing was I began to read, and I began to get some positive information, and I began to listen to some positive things. And when I began to download that positivity in me, it began to change something on the inside of me. See, be careful what you hear. Be careful what you see. Be careful the things that you listen to. Because people are pouring things into you, and this world constantly bombards you with negativity. And that's the reason why most people are negative. But you have to actively pursue the positive in life. You have to actively pursue things that are good, things that are joyful, things that are positive. Because then that begins to make that difference in your life. And so I began to seek those positive things. And I began to read, and I began to read things that told me that I was more than a conqueror. I began to read things that told me that I was a king. I began to read things that told me I was great and that there was greatness on the inside of me. I began to read things that told me that I can excel if I put my mind to it. I began to read these different things, and it shifted my perspective. And so then when my perspective shifted, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do what I need to do. And so I'm in Wichita, and I'm like, okay, I need to get a job. And the only place that would hire me was Dillon's. And Dillon's gave me an opportunity, so I said, okay, I'm grateful. So I go in, I do the orientation, and I get done with my first day, feeling excited, like, okay, I got it. This is the start. I go home. I later get a phone call from Dillon's. I'm like, oh, you guys need me to come in and work some more? I'm ready. And they say, no. I'm sorry to inform you, but we have to let you go. And I'm like, wait, what? And they go, your background check came back, and it looks like you have some things pending. So because of that, you have some felonies pending, you have some things, we're going to have to let you go. Devastated. And so I said, okay, I guess you guys got to do what you got to do. So then I'm like, okay, now I have to find something. And all through high school, I remember working at McDonald's. So I'm like, let me just go and try. And I went and I applied. They interviewed me and they gave me an opportunity. And I was so grateful for that opportunity. I was so grateful for it because I realized that not everybody gets an opportunity. And that's where most people fail because they expect things to happen and they expect certain things to happen and they think that they are supposed to get the opportunities. A lot of people have an entitlement mindset. And when you have an entitlement mindset, you think that things are just going to come to you. But when you have a grateful mindset, you understand that not every day is the same. When you have a grateful attitude, you understand not every day you get an opportunity. So because I got that opportunity, I said, allow me, I know I need to use this opportunity wisely. Ownership. I said, this is a point where I take ownership of my life. And right now, this is the only company that has decided to give me the opportunity. And so I need to make sure that they know that hiring me was the best decision they ever made. Talk about taking ownership. And so everything that I did it with the level of excellence. A level of excellence. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Like, you have to understand that nobody's perfect. Nobody. But I found out that in the pursuit of perfection, you catch excellence. And so you're never going to be perfect, but as you chase after that, as you try to be as perfect as you can, you will catch excellence. and everything you do will be excellent. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so when I was on front counter taking orders, like, I was excited. Like most people, it's crazy. Like now when you go in, like nobody wants to greet you. Like it's got so bad, we just got the kiosk. Just go to the kiosk. We don't even want to talk to you. Like it's, and I get it, technology is great, but sometimes that face-to-face, that human interaction is very much needed. And so when people would come in, as soon as they hit the door, I'm sitting there with a big smile. Good morning. Welcome to McDonald's. Good evening. Welcome to McDonald's. What can I do for you? How can I help you? Excellence. And then I went in the drive-thru, and my goal was, can I have this food ready by the time they pulled up? And people would think I was crazy because the person that was bagging my food, I'm rushing, like, come on, like they just taking their time. And I'm like, no, it's not about us, it's about the customer. Like there's a certain level of expectation. And then I would go in the grill area. And when I was in the grill area, I'm like, look, ain't nobody going to make sandwiches faster than me. That was just my thought process. Like, let me wrap these as quick as I can so we can get them to the customer as quickly as we can. But not only that, quality was a big concern. I said, I don't want to just be quick, but I want the food to be good. So if it's not fresh, it's got to go. And people thought I was crazy. But again, when we talk about extreme work ethic, we're talking about going above and beyond. We're talking about going beyond the ordinary, because ordinary people, they just, hey, it ain't old till it's sold. So leave it in there and but I had a different mindset. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so because I was performing with the level of excellence, I began to move up quick, and within the first couple of weeks, they promoted me to shift manager. And then again, I was putting forth my work ethic, and after, a couple years, I think it was about 2 years, they ended up promoting me to assistant store manager. And so at this point, I'm like, yeah, things are really moving for me, because I decided to take ownership of my life and take ownership of my destiny. But then there were times where, I was an assistant store manager, and there are times where the negativity would get to me. Again, nobody's perfect. And there would be times where I struggled and where I wanted to quit and where I didn't feel like giving the effort. And so I would do like a roller coaster. Some days I'm really doing well, and then other days I'm not doing so well. But then I had a conversation. And I had a conversation with the lady by the name of Patricia. And she was our area training manager. And she's still one of my mentors to this day. Like, I tell her all the time, I'm so grateful for the advice that she gave me. But one day, we went out into the lobby, and we had a serious conversation. And she told me, she's like, what do you want? And I sat there, and I'm like, I really didn't know what to say at the time. And what happened was my general manager had to take some time off for surgery. And so they ended up bringing 2 other managers over to help run the store while she was out. And so what Patricia was asking, she's like, what do you want? Like, do you want to run your own store? Because honestly, we know you're capable of doing that. We know what you're able to do. And the fact that they brought these other managers over to help, like honestly, they shouldn't have to do that, because we know exactly what you're able to do. But the problem is you haven't really decided yet. Again, goes back to that make a decision. She said you need to decide what it is that you want. And that's the issue. A lot of times we haven't made the decision. And so it's like getting in the car, turning on the GPS, and thinking that it's just going to show you exactly where you need to go. But you got to put the coordinates in. You got to put the location in. You have to decide where it is you're going. And once you decide, then the path will be made clear. And so at that moment, that was the moment where I decided I want to run my own store. She said, okay, good. Let's get to it. And so then my work began to go back up to the level that I knew it should be at. And I began to chase after perfection again. I began to pursue excellence again. And I was doing all the things that my general manager was doing. It got to the point where basically everything that she would do, I said, teach me how to do it. I want to know how to do everything. To the point where I want to make your job easier. I want to make it to where you can come in and don't have to worry about anything because I got it all taken care of. And people looked at me crazy. Like, I have friends to this day that would tell you, they were like, Cliff, what are you doing? Why are you working so hard? Why are you doing general manager stuff and you're not getting paid as a general manager? But they didn't understand that there was something I found out. I found out that a lot of people want to become something. And they think that they'll just become it automatically. But I found out before you can become something, you have to be it. Before you become, you have to be. Hear what I'm saying? Before I could become a GM, I had to be a GM. What does that look like? I had to do what a GM does. I had to do all the things that she did. I had to encompass what a GM would do before I actually became a GM. And many people don't want to be it. They just want to become it. A lot of people want to become healthy. A lot of people want to become fit. But guess what? If you want to become fit, you got to be fit. You got to start doing now in the present what a fit person would do. You have to be it. And as you be it, eventually you will become it. And so eventually I got the opportunity that I was looking for. Eventually I got the opportunity to be a GM. And it happened so crazy, but it happened when I least expected it. Because we got to a point where we bought a bunch of new locations, and they went and we had a meeting and they told everybody what locations they were going to. And guess what? When the time came, my name wasn't called. And they said, this person's going here, this person's going there. And I'm sitting there waiting, but my name wasn't called. You know how hard that was? And when I leave, I hear people, man, Cliff, you should have got a store. Man, they're crazy for not giving you a store. Man, they're telling me just how crazy it is and how I deserve this and I deserve that. And now they're like, what you gonna do now? Because in their mindset, when things get hard, when things get tough, you're supposed to quit. So they're like, you might as well, you gonna start looking for another job? You gonna quit? And when we got back to work, they were surprised because my level of work didn't go down, but it actually went up. And I said, okay, I got to take this thing to the next level. Because again, ownership. If I'm going to get a store, it's not on them, it's on me. And so I put in the work and I continued to do what I needed to do. And it got to a point to where the time came where our supervisor came to the location. And she sat me and two other GMs down, and basically they explained, my GM, she said, hey, you're going to this store down the street. They told this other guy, Bradley, he said, you're taking this location on the other side of town. And Cliff, this is now your store. And I'm just excited. I'm just like, yes, like it finally happened. I was able to get the thing that I was working towards. And so I get the store and things are going well. And eventually we ended up moving back to Salina. And we moved to Salina and I ran a store in Salina and then I ran another store in Salina. But then we got to a point where it was like, okay, I've been doing this for some time now. I'm ready to try to step out and do my own thing. And that's where we stepped out to open up our own business. And like I said earlier, things did not go well. We ran into some issues. We ran into some financial issues and things didn't go good. And that's where, I found myself back in a dark place, back in just the basement of my mother-in-law. And it was hard. But again, ownership. It's nobody's fault but mine. But guess what? I can do something about it. So I said, okay, I gotta get up from this situation. I gotta get up from this negative thinking. And what you gonna do now? Let me go back out and get a job. And the crazy thing about it is, even though the business failed, there were still some great things that happened because of that. Because I was able to go and get a job at this pharmaceutical company. And the only reason I was able to get that job is because one of our customers that was coming into our location had mentioned it to me. I said, yeah, I'm trying to get back into the workforce. And she said, you should try to come out where I am. Tell them I sent you. I'm like, okay, great. I go and I get hired on. And that was January of 2019. And so I get hired on, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting from the bottom again. But it's amazing because, again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like, I had so much ingrained this work ethic, this extreme work ethic in my mind. I so much I was always trying to take ownership of my life and trying to be as productive as I could be and try to continue to be persistent and all those things I would put into play. And next thing you know, at this new company that I was at, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, completely different. I've been in the restaurant business most of my life, and I get in this completely new industry. Didn't know anything about it, but what I did know is how to put in the work. What I did know is how to apply an extreme work ethic. What I did know is how to chase after perfection and acquire excellence. What I did know was whatever you do, do to the best of your abilities. Whatever it is that your hand finds to do, do with all your might. And that's at work, that's at home, you can take that anywhere. Whatever you decide to do, if you're going to touch it, be great. Give it your all. If not, don't touch it. Leave it alone. If you're going to go into work and not give your best effort, there's no point in going into work. Like, the company is giving you an opportunity. You know how many people are looking for jobs? You know how many people need work? And yet there are certain people that have the opportunity and they're wasting it. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so I started working at this company, and within the first 90 days, I started through a temp agency, and after the first 90 days, I get hired on. And most people get hired on at like the lowest level. But I get hired on as a room lead. I had an interview, and they were so impressed. They said, would you like to be a group lead? And I said, yeah, I know nothing about it, but I'm willing to learn. And so they made me a group lead. And then after a year or so, I ended up moving to a lead trainer. And so in our training area, I became a lead in that area. And then later, about a few months later, I ended up getting another position, which basically I would lead this entire new line. I would help and I would work with engineers to the development of this brand new line, and I would do all these documents, and I would train everybody to learn how to work these lines. And then I went to the next level shortly after that. And it was just crazy. People are like, how in the world are you moving so quickly? Like, there was a lot of people that had been there for years and had never seen that. And so then I get this position to where I'm in communication with supply chain and helping basically talk to supply chain about how all of our lines are able to run, and the capacity and the scheduling. And I'm basically that bridge in between. And then later, I get a production supervisor position. Now, all this happens within like 3.5 years. Very quickly. And that's the thing. When you talk about extreme work ethic, like, that's an accelerator. Like, extreme work ethic, when you apply that causes things to move very quickly. If you're wondering why things are slow, apply an extreme work ethic and watch how things tend to speed up. Because most people aren't willing to do what I was doing. And then about a year later, I was able to get a senior continuous improvement specialist role. And all of that happened because of an extreme work ethic, because I refuse to quit. I refuse to allow the challenges of life to stop me. I continue to persist. I continue to put forth a strong productivity. Like when I was doing whatever task I was doing, I was focused. Most people like to shoot the breeze and, yeah, we'll get to it when we do. But by the time they get to it, I done got to 5 or 6 of things when they're still trying to finish the one thing. Not only that, but we were able to start our business, Cliff Bunville Solutions, LLC. Like the things that happen because we put forth an extreme work ethic is just an amazing thing. And so as I get ready to close, like if you look up on the screen, that's it. Those are the things. And so what I want everyone to do is repeat after me. Matter of fact, can we all stand for a second? I know it's been about an hour. Want you guys to get fired up. And I want you to repeat after me. Say, I will be persistent.
I will be persistent.
That was okay. Let's try it again. Say, I will be persistent.
I will be persistent.
Come on, say it again. I will be persistent.
I will be persistent.
Remember that. When the challenges of life come, when life comes knocking at your door, when you're thinking everything is good and all of a sudden you get that bad news, remember, you said it. One more time, I will be persistent.
I will be persistent.
Number 2, I will be productive.
I will be productive.
When everybody else is just taking their time, when everybody else is just saying, we'll get to it whenever, remember, you said you're going to be productive. Say it again, I will be productive.
I will be productive.
And the last one, I will take ownership.
I will take ownership.
I will take ownership.
I will take ownership.
You got to remember that. It's time to stop blaming other people. You can control your life. It's time to take ownership. It's time to stop putting it in the next person's hand. Stop allowing people to have power over you. It ends today. Like it ends today. Like when you leave this conference, you ought to be a new person. You ought to be to the point where it's all on me. It's all on you. Take back your power. Take back your power. One more time. I will take ownership.
I will take ownership.
Thank you. That's my time.